All Things TechIE podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.
Come along, guys. It's the All Things TechIE podcast, episode 55. I'm Justin Dawson. Thank you for joining us. No Simon. It's been so busy this time of the year. But Merry Christmas to you all. I'm wearing a Christmas jumper. And if you'd like to get in contact with the program, it's flashing up on your screen if you're watching us on YouTube, youtube.com/C/Justin Dawson. That's where you will see all our episodes in the past, and this episode 55, our Christmas edition. I was hoping to have more people on this program for the Christmas edition, but you know what? It's Christmas time. It's the 22nd of December while I'm recording this podcast, and everyone is so ridiculously busy. Some people only finishing work. I finished work last Friday, and I'm still playing catch up with myself. So how are you getting on? You know, a lot of easing of restrictions, new restrictions here in Ireland. Our pubs are closing at 8 p.m. every day from now until the 30th of January. So we're not going to be ringing the bells in on New Year's Day here in Ireland in any way, shape or form. Restrictions on household visits. They're recommending that you keep your limits low over the Christmas period. We're trying to do so here. Thankfully, schools are still open, but this Omicron variation of the virus of COVID-19, it's rampant and it's strong in England, but I fear it's going to come into Ireland tenfold after Christmas, unfortunately. But here, look, we're not here to talk about COVID-19. As much as possible, we're going to talk about AV and technology. Have a great program lined up for you. Do you remember back in episode 47? If you haven't listened to episode 47, do listen to that after this episode. Episode 47 of the All Things TechIE podcast, I spoke with John Roche from CT Ireland and Alan Burns from NEP Europe, who are setting up a graduate program to teach people audiovisual. It's probably one of the first of a kind for both Ireland and England. You know, like there's so many times where I've heard of people that's gone into media backgrounds, into sound backgrounds, doing a bit of TV, but there's no audiovisual qualification. Okay, then not to say that this is an audiovisual qualification. They took 8 interns and then we're going to train them up. So earlier on, I spoke with Shane Slevin from NEP Europe and moved over to CT Ireland a while back, and also Anisha, who's one of the interns, and this is what they had to say. It's the All Things TechIE podcast. You know, we talked about this a while back, where we had CT Ireland were doing a grad program. I'm joined by Shane and Anisha. Shane, you sort of had a lot of background in helping these grads and the teaching. First of all, Shane, I'm going to come to you and say, give me a bit of background of your time with CT. You've been with them for many years now at this stage.
So CT, I suppose CT itself in Ireland, I joined back in early 2020, so not too long just in CT department, but as in the group NEP and CT 2010 I started in. So it's a good few years there. Started off in NEP Ireland, was Observe at the time, as pretty much similar to Anisha here as a grad. There's 3 of us brought in, 2 of us fresh out of college, didn't know a thing. Another from another company who was coming in as well with broadcasts and AV, all that was all new to us. Went across each department, started off in vision, went to rigging, went to audio, kind of saw a bit of everything. 10 years of that, going from a graduate to broadcast engineer to senior broadcast engineer to head of engineering to designing the trucks that we were working in and building them. And then from project managing those to moving over to CT, where I am now. Came in as a technical development manager, did a bit of it the live side, integration side, and then since joining CT, I've now moved into the head of system integrations. So projects from what I was finishing off in NEP, I now do on a daily basis, and it's very enjoyable, and that's where I ended up. And to see new graduates coming in now and going through the same, and there's 8 of them this time, it's a great thing, and it's kind of interesting. I kind of have my own interest of oh, so what did you like? Where are you going? And getting through that.
It's definitely one of a kind. We mentioned this in our previous podcast episode, where CT Ireland have pretty much come out with a graduate program that is not being done in Ireland and England. Yes, we have our college courses to study media, but there's no AV course. There's no fundamental audiovisual, and this is AV. Well, it's such a big umbrella. I studied radio. Simon Lang, my co-presenter, he studied sound engineering. We ended up coming together and doing a podcast, and we worked together for many years. And Simon works for CT as well. So, but there hasn't been anything, and I know you guys have been working behind the scenes with the VIXA, the Audiovisual Association. How difficult, Anisha, coming to you, like, how difficult was it? Like, where did you see the advertisement for this role, or where did you hear about it, and how did you go about applying and end up being one of the candidates?
I was very, very close to not applying at all, because it was like the week of hell when the application was due. It was the week that my dissertation was due. There was like a podcast competition that was on at the same time. And I was like, will I go for it or will I not go for it? I was like, oh, maybe I'll just wait until next year. But we got an email from our like course supervisor saying, this is a really good opportunity if you're interested at all in any of like the AV side of broadcasting. Like, this is a good foot in the door. And I was like reading the course, and I like sent it around to my friends. I was like, this sounds amazing. Look at all the different stuff. Like, this is what we were doing in college, and having a chance to get paid to do it, that would be so good. So they said, go do it, like just apply. And if you don't get it, sure, you can always try again if they do it again. So I applied and then was waiting around to see what would happen. And then I got it. I was delighted. But I was just literally like, if I hadn't got the email from my lecturer, I never would have found it. It was just that it happened.
You need to be listening to more podcasts. You hear me? Listen to this podcast. Shane, how many people did we have apply, and how did you go around selecting the final 8?
Oh, it was we had so many. It was countless, and going through them and just finding the people. Like the good thing that we saw from that was, we do this program again, there'll be no shortage of it, and the more people we can kind of get in and apply, then to select the better. But whittling it down to 8 people. It wasn't easy, and I feel for the people who probably didn't make the cut this time, but apply again. We'll be doing this again. This has been a great success, but getting the people like Anisha and the rest of them, it's great. And it's what I like about it as well, is speaking to them and kind of doing an end of year kind of catch up with them. They are coming back with, oh, I like this area and I like that area. They're not all focusing in one area, which is showing that it's kind of good that we're spreading the workload across all the groups, and they're getting that interest.
Now, people bring it up all the time. There's too many males in the AV industry. It's great to see some females entering the world of AV and getting noticed in the world of AV as well. Anisha, you have to get onto AV Tweeps as well now. I've got to plug that, on AV in the AM, if you haven't started doing that already. But how many males to females did you have then, Shane?
It's funny. A lot of people won't believe this, but like, we didn't actually go, let's get X of this and Y of that, but we ended up with 4 male, 4 female, and that was literally just as it came down. And again, it sounds too ideal, but that's what came of it, and it's exactly kind of what you want to see. As we all know, it kind of was male dominant for a while. Certain roles, females, but that's changing now. It's becoming a lot more diverse around each area.
And Anisha, so what have you been doing in the past couple of months? With
That's a great question. It's been so varied. It's like, what haven't I been doing? We're kind of going around like doing a bit of everything. I've got like to do like some just really cool things that I never thought I'd be a part of. I was in one of the government buildings for Expo, to like launch Expo. So they had some Irish like traditional band come in, and they were just, I like nearly I was so embarrassed, and I was nearly crying watching it, because it was the first time I'd seen live music in about a year and a half, and I used to go to a gig every week nearly, and it was like the first time, and having it be like an Irish trad band, like it was amazing to see it. And yeah, we've been doing a lot of VC operating, which I think is a really good skill to have, because the world that we're in now, everything is video conferencing, everything is online, and being able to set people up for success basically when we go into a live show, I think makes a big difference. So that's that's some of the stuff we've been doing. But it's great in that, like, every time I go to set a day to set up, even if I'm doing a VC operation, I know that whoever's there will show me what's going on, like no matter what it is. If there's a sound engineer there, they'll show me. If there's a vision mixer there, everyone is so kind with their time and very willing to teach us, and that's been across the board.
Have you shaken off those nerves? You know what? Like I worked with Simon for over 6 years in a financial firm in Dublin, and I tell you what, it took a long time for the two of us to go right. I've got this, or for him who was teaching me a couple of things in the building to go right. You can leave me alone now. Okay. Have you got over those nerves yet?
I'm very anxious in general, but I find when once we go live, it's like a switch goes off in my brain, and you don't have time to be worried anymore. You just have to go with the flow and make sure that you do the best job that you can possibly do. So yeah, I'm usually anxious before the show starts, but once we kick it off, then there's just no time to be worried. You just have to go.
Well, I think Shane will agree as well that there's times where we all do live events and we are listening to every single thing that we do and watching everything and just realize half the people in this room didn't notice you making that mistake, and just go with the flow. It's no one looked at me strangely. It's fine. It's good. Everything's going clear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like when you do a live event, like if it's an entertainment show or goes off for record, you're kind of going, oh, I have to clean that up in edit now. Or if it's a live event, like if you're watching a rugby match and it's 80 minutes and you're sitting there and you see a camera pan or something that's strange and you're just like head and hands, you're going, oh no, everybody at home is just not even aware of that. But as soon as that on air time comes and it ticks down to it, yeah, you're just switched on and you're watching everything. There's no room for error.
Anisha brought up a great point there. Like the first time she's been at a live event in over nearly a year and a half. Was there ever any stage of when you were recruiting that you thought, hold on a minute, this might not actually work out according to plan because of COVID? Was that a bit of a knockback, or were you thinking, oh God, well, we can get them into the building, but will we be able to give them roles to do if we can't get out onto the workplace?
Yeah, I suppose we always wanted to do this program. COVID, obviously, I don't think anyone obviously saw it coming, but it wasn't going to stop us. Like even myself, when I moved from NEP over to CT into this role, it was months before pretty much first lockdown and pandemic, and I wasn't too dissimilar to the graduates coming in. There's still colleagues of mine I still haven't met in person, because we all work remotely now, and we'll meet in the office the other time where there's projects going on. But as far as bringing the graduates in, bring them in, make them part of the team, put them out on the gigs we can do, come online, do the Teams calls as much as can. And they're just like us, to be honest. It wasn't anything different that we're going to be brought in and treated differently. But yeah, challenging times. I'm sure, Anisha, there's probably still people you haven't met either that we work with. And that's how it is. Like Anisha, I brought out to a system integrations project, and a couple of months in, it was the first time I'd met Anisha after coming on board, because she's out on live jobs, and the way everybody, we can't all just gather together now on one job and see how it's going. We have to pick the days we go on site and what jobs we attend. So by the time you get scheduled onto a job I'm on, then you catch up and you see what's going on there then as well.
Yeah, a lot of emails going back and forth, I guess.
Yeah, you see emails and now it's Teams calls for probably what would have been just a chat over a coffee in the office.
Yes. So Anisha, like apart from the live music, has there been any other area that you just went, yeah, that's where I can see myself falling into if I got a role?
That's a really good question. Everyone always asks me that, and I don't really know. I feel like I still need to like get my hands on everything. I have an interest in sound. I have an interest in college. I loved vision mixing, but it was a lot less pressure when you're doing it for like a college TV show compared to when you're doing it for like actual TV or for an event. So, but we do have that chance to kind of to learn when we're like not on when we're setting up for a job, say. So like that, I'm excited to learn more and like get more hands on doing stuff like that. Yeah, but I don't know. I'll wait and see until further down the line. I want to learn as much as I can before I decide.
And
what
you
I
know
want
what? Like I think anyone that's been in the industry for a long time will say that you never settle, or you never decide. No, this is what I want to keep on doing for the next 50 years or 40 years. Like it's a constantly changing industry. We talked before on our previous episodes that like CT and NEP, because they're part of NEP, there's loads of courses that you can do, I guess, online, and of course there's a VIXA and the CTS. Are you thinking of going down that route? Have you started cracking the book open for any CTS or any VIXA courses?
Well, I was doing a course in Pulse over the last few months in the background, so that kind of took up a lot of my time. Whenever I had free time, I was like trying to do my assignments for that, but I'm finished now. So I want to try get into. We did like a little bit of the starter courses for Avixa, so I have those done. But I want to do like the Dante training and stuff because it's kind of relevant. I'm going into sound in NEP, and we were speaking with some of the people that had been in NEP, and the girl that had done sound said, yeah, maybe do your Dante course because it would just be helpful for you to know. So that's what I'm going to do over my Christmas break. I'm going to have a little look at that.
Yeah, well, look, the great thing is that they are online. You don't have to tour around to. Now, have you been given the opportunity to, or any talks in the future? Maybe Shane can answer this. Is there any talks of going overseas and doing some gigs and doing some events?
Yeah, so one thing we're definitely doing in the new year, we're looking at bringing some grads over to our UK office, a branch over there, and introducing you to some different events, apart from the Irish gigs that you'll probably used to. So yeah, definitely coming over to the UK office. So CT Ireland have a system integrations department in the UK office, and there's obviously CT UK, there's NEP UK. So definitely over to the UK is planned for the new year. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you met all your other graduate friends now, Anisha?
Yeah, I have indeed, but they're all lovely. I like it's such amazing. Like that what we were saying about, I said in my interview as well, I was like really excited to go into CT and NEP because like when I was doing my research for the interview, I was like looking and I was like, this is so great for there's so many women like in prominent roles, and that there was the 50-50 split. Like I know it wasn't intentional, but that there's other like girls, because in college I don't mean to like be disparaging about it, but a lot of the time it could be a bit of a boys club where the lads would get in at the equipment first and the girls were too quiet to say anything. Like I don't want to make stereotypes, but we just didn't like, we let everyone push in ahead of us, so that it's really nice to have a good like group of, there's like a mix of ages as well. I think I'm the baby, but I think we have like 23 to 30s, so like there's a great like range of experience across us, and everyone's coming from different courses, so they all have like different knowledge, but they're all again like willing to share it with each other.
And have you found the same, Shane, out on the workplace, that you can just
Yeah,
drop them into different roles and go right off, go play?
yeah, definitely, and kind of what you were getting at there. Like one of the most important things was changing around different roles. Like a line I said, I think every graduate when we were having our calls last week was, I started off in vision when I started my kind of program, and I was like, yeah, this is great. I want to be a vision engineer. Why can't I just stay here now? But you go do 3 months in every other department, and then I come back to the vision department to kind of go, do you know what? I'll be a much better vision engineer now because I know what the sound issues are, I know what the rigging issues are, the VT issues, graphics, all that kind of side of it. And getting around in all those areas. Anisha, that's kind of advice I gave you and everyone else is taking as much knowledge from every department as you can, because it makes you a better person for whatever department you end up in. Just getting all the information in is great, and take the courses in. So like the joy of NEP is all those online courses, they're available to you as an employee, and they're there and they're great. You don't always get those, and what we're kind of saying as well, there's no perfect college course for doing this, so you don't get that training until you're in here and you're part of NEP and CT, and that's the joy of that as well. So it's great to get those.
And so we're ending the first, I guess, 6 to 8 months of the course. How long more have all these graduates got with you guys for the end of the course?
Well, so it's 3 months. So come the new year, we'll do a swap. So we'll get the 4 that were NEP, and CT will get our 4. So yeah, the new year is a new office, I suppose.
Yeah. So are you looking forward to the new challenge, Anita, with a different area?
Yeah, definitely. I just want to learn everything I can. I'm really excited. I know like that the guys in the other NNAP really enjoyed themselves, and I know that we enjoyed ourselves in CT. So we'll be swapping over, and we'll all get to share a few points hopefully in the future, and trade what we've learned in our swap over.
Now, I know with COVID, I personally have decided that I'm not going to go to ISC in February. Is there any talks of you guys going across to ISE?
I don't think yet. Like we talked about, like IBC one that's passed and that got cancelled, so it's kind of it's all seeing it as it comes, really.
Yeah.
COVID is, and we have to be very careful with jobs as well, that we can't risk really taking people out at the moment, and that's a large part of COVID, especially now with the new wave coming around. But we meet clients on a daily basis. You know, we need to be careful and think about them as well. So anything like that, yeah, we'll just have to.
And I guess it has put a challenge on it, Shane. Like if you are trying to get the likes of Anisha out with you, that you're counting numbers of how many people are working with you, and can you get that many people into the building at a given time to do the installs or do any of the live events?
Yeah, exactly. And we can't just turn up to a job and bring who we want now. There's so much paperwork and clearance beforehand. Like we've got some clients now who are doing installs for, but just to get somebody on site, you know, you have to call ahead, you have to get paperwork signed, you have to get pre-clearance with COVID and get tested, and then turn on site. So it's a lot harder to kind of, especially when we're scheduling the graduates, of what projects to put them on. The live projects might be a bit easier because we're always, let's say, based in one of our studios, and that's easier to probably bring people in and out of there. And the integration side of it might be moving to a large company's office space to somebody else's space, and it's less easy to go into somebody else's kind of bubble, let's say, in their company. But when it's our space, it's a bit easier. So one of the challenges we had as well was introducing the graduates to the system integrations pillar of CT. Because in CT, we have the live events, system integrations, managed services, and getting everyone around those departments was a little bit tricky as well. Anisha had the joy of coming out one day. It was an outdoor event. It was nice and rainy. It wasn't the best day to experience. But
do the cold ones first and pull the cables, and then you know whether you want to stick them or not. Yeah, like, you know, everyone's sort of, like you find out nearly everyone starts off as a roadie at some stage, pulling cables and stuff, and doing the dirty jobs first before they realize, okay. But I guess, Anisha, because as Shane mentioned that it's an in-house studio, it's that layer of comfortableness knowing that it's your own equipment, that you're not going out on site and having to rig it up and just hope to pray, do a little prayer, and you know that it's kind of everything's got to switch on and it works. Yeah, I know from my experience of live events that was always the case, that you know, even when you're hiring equipment, you know, you're checking and double checking that mixing desk to make sure that it's actually physically working properly. Yeah, and that's why the nerves, whereas when it's in house, it's a bit different.
There's no such thing as it worked yesterday, you know. This thing is going to work today. Even like a fiber cable or any cable, someone will take a brand new one out of a packet and give it to you, and he goes, "Oh, it's brand new, it's going to work." And he goes, "No, it just means it hasn't worked before, you know." So you still have to test it, yeah.
So, have you joined all the social medias, Anisha, now with, or have you sort of, like, because you've been studying so much, you've parked that end of exploitation to like the AV world with AV tweeps and AV in the AM and stuff?
I know, I wouldn't be very familiar now. It's more ignorance on my part. The only thing I've seen like bits and pieces, that actually the install that we did that day in the rain, I saw the finished version of that. It looked great. I was like, well, that's nice. Worth all the pain.
It does bring, like, you know what? I always think, even if you have spent days in installing something or setting up something for a temporary event, it's some bit of satisfaction knowing that you were involved in the background of making that happen. And you know, like, I think I bore my wife all the time and just go, yeah, I was involved in that, I did that, you know. It's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I like, I don't know about you guys, but you talk about video and stuff like that and live events. I can't. My wife will actually tell you that I cannot watch a film without starting to break it down piece by piece and go, "Oh wow, look at the." Or Simon, if you met Simon will actually bow for me. We walk into a room and, like, there's the just behind me on that green screen there's the expo that's down at CHQ, and the heritage one. Simon and I walked in there getting a tour, and all we started doing was breaking it apart, going, "Oh right, so they have an Xbox up there, and that's how that's. Oh right, and yeah, there's the touch." You know, like, we weren't actually like going, "Wow, like look how well this is put together." It's more technology and breaking it apart. I'm sure you did the same.
Yeah, I think that's going to come to you, Anisha. I think everything's going to be destroyed for you. I watch sport now, and you're looking at how many camera angles the replays are coming from, whether someone's like, basically get to the point where you can really tell what camera type the slow-mo came from, because you know the color matrix is trying to match that in with something else. And again, watching reality TV now, because you do a lot of LE shows, and you know it's all pre-recorded, and they do sections and they edit it together to make it all look like it's all happening at the same time. So I'd be sitting at home watching something, and you just ruin it for the next person. You're going, no, they didn't record all that at the same time. What are you doing?
Yeah, look,
that's just one camera, and they did all the sections and they put it together.
He's wearing a different color tie.
yeah. Continue. Yeah, that's a terrible thing. Yeah, but yeah. So watching TV is totally different now. It's a different experience. But,
do you know what? I can't actually listen to radio without starting to break it down, because I was a sound technician way back when in my college days with News Talk and Today FM. But I always know when something is going wrong in the studio. Yeah. You can hear the change of someone's voice going, okay, and yeah, it's like, oh yeah, your computer's stalled there, you know, or
a sudden song change or something. I had one before where I was out walking the dog actually, and one of my colleagues was texting me going, "Are you watching the rugby match, the Welsh game or whatever?" And I was like, "No, I'm not at home." Says, "Oh, it's a disaster." So you can tell what goes wrong, or the graphics gone off the screen, or they're stuck in one camera. So basically, when a truck fails and you got a UPS backup, you'd probably have a router panel cutting the show, or you got one camera, or there's just the commentator's mic down, you lose all graphics. So this happened to some broadcaster in the UK. I rush home to run into the living room to see what's going on, and they're sitting there watching a match. And I was like, "Oh, I heard it's a disaster." And they're kind of going, "Oh, what? Oh, I suppose, yeah, we didn't know who the last sub was coming on." I says, "Well, there's no graphics. There's a glitch between every camera cut, you know, but they don't notice those things." But if I was sitting there, I'd be having a heart attack thinking what's going on.
The normal Joe soap does not identify what we go through on a daily basis, you know. And if you haven't like broken sweat doing some of these live events, you know, there's something terribly wrong. Well, Anisha, wish you all the best in this role, and change over to a new department. I from working in the industry for some time, soak it all up, because it's, you know, it's and take all the online courses you can get over the Christmas period. If you're not doing anything else, if we're not allowed to meet friends and we have to stay socially distanced, well, now's the time to study, I guess.
Yeah.
Shane, great to talk to you as always. Yeah. You know what? I think we should do this separately again in the future, where I'm going to put the two of you under the spotlight. You gave a bit of a background to both of how you started in AV. For Anisha, this is a big move into the world of AV, and I guess you're going to spend some time to try and figure out which area you want to get into.
Yeah, definitely. I need to get my hands on everything and make a decision then.
Well, look, you got a nice road mic as well, you know. Tell me, Shane, has Anisha ever used the lines like, "Can I just borrow this for the weekend and test it out?"
Yeah, the warehouse is probably empty now for Christmas. You know, they're all brought from home to set up a studio. Yeah.
Really enjoyed talking with Anisha and Shane Slevin from NEP, or sorry, I keep on saying NEP. He used to be NEP Europe, but now he's CT Ireland as well. But like all under one umbrella, CT Ireland. Great bunch of guys and girls there, and wish Anisha the very best as she goes on with her intern. Really great that it was not expected, but it was a 50-50 with 4 men, 4 women that joined CT Ireland in the intern program, and we are going to be catching up with them in the new year too. If you'd like to get in contact with the program, visit us at www.allthingstech.ie. You can Twitter AV Tech Junkies, and my personal Twitter feed is, or my personal Twitter handle is also on screen as well. Now, what did you do over the past year on Zoom? Well, God, you know, with the winter lockdowns and everything, it's been a tough year. And do you know what? At the very beginning of the year, the second lockdown in January, thank God, if we go into lockdown like we did last January, at least I think we're a bit wiser to COVID, and a lot of things changed in my personal life, where I changed job. I found out more about my son with his autism, and a lot of things have changed. And I want to thank all the AV tweeps and all the AV professionals who's got behind me when I'm just being busy between changing jobs and doing this podcast and also looking after families, where people send me private messages from time to time just asking me how I am. Yeah, and it's really appreciated. Really appreciated. And I thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for getting in contact with us. But I like this. This Zoom came out with this. How did we Zoom over the past year? You know what? Zoom has been great. For me, I wish I just put more shares in Zoom before it like absolutely exploded. Is it balancing out? Who knows? You know, Microsoft Teams maybe taking a bit of the market too. Are we ever going to leave the world of Zoom? No, I don't. I personally don't think so. I think we're in a hybrid model going forward for quite some time now. I know campuses want to get us back onto campus. We have been back on campus. It's worked to some extent. But I still believe that like we do a lot on Zoom. I do a lot on Zoom with podcasts, talking to people. I agree some meetings could easily be emails, quick emails rather than calls. But what have we done about these meetings, right? So Zoom has shown over the past 12 months, 68% dress casually for video meetings. Yep, I always dress casually for meetings. Well, you know what? I don't have to wear a shirt and tie in my main work job, so the only time I wore a suit and tie was when I was going for an interview virtually for my new role at DCU. Almost half of you, 47% of you, said it's okay to eat during meetings. If you're going to eat during meetings, turn off your webcam. That's my personal thought. Unless it is something non-informal, getting together, doing the AV happy hours. I miss them. I wish Chris would bring them back. AV happy hours. I think we'd still need a couple of AV happy hours from time to time. Maybe not every fortnight. Maybe it was a bit too much, but even just once a month, get in touch with people and see how people are. I know there was one after the LTSMG. Enjoyed that. 26% never or almost never showered before hopping on calls. You dirty so-and-sos. I have a routine. Personally, I have a routine. It's very rare that I don't have a shower before heading to work, even if I'm working from home and sitting on virtual calls. What you're saying, 71% have said you are on mute. Yes, we've done that. 57% have said, can you see my screen? No, I've never done that, but I support a lot of calls in my role. 21% have said, oh, sorry, I lost where I was. 21% have said, next slide, please. And you know what? I support a lot of Zoom calls, and I'm so glad that Zoom have enabled that new feature where if I'm sharing the slides, that someone else can press next. If they have the latest Zoom interface, a lot of people don't update all the time. Update your Zoom. You hear me? Justin said, update your Zoom. 75% of users say they wave at the end of their meetings. Yes, I still do that. I'm sorry, I do wave at the end of meetings. 73% attended happy hour drinks at some game night. Yes, doing that. 34% have attended a fitness or cooking class. Not a fitness class, not a cooking class, drinking class. Yes, we had a couple of beer tastings. When you're not at your desk, these are the moments of popular places that you're taking meetings. 42% from their bedside. No, never taken a Zoom call from bed. 21% meet while walking or jogging. No, I rather phone someone, usually local, when that's happening. 11% use Zoom on public transport. No, never have. IT security, never have. Don't feel comfortable. Sometimes I don't even feel comfortable taking a phone call on public transport. And as well, I'm wearing a mask, usually face mask when I'm your top backgrounds. Well, sorry, I'm not over in a big studio overlooking Dublin City. This is a green screen behind me. If you hadn't guessed that, that's Dublin City behind me and the Samuel Beckett Bridge. We asked your favourite types of virtual backgrounds. Zoom did. This is what you said. Outdoor landscapes, 26%. Well, that's an outdoor sort of landscape. Blurred backgrounds. No, I don't really like blurred backgrounds. Unless there's a lot of crap behind you. That's the only time I use it. And sometimes in my office I use the blurred background effect, but I have a different background for virtual background for my office space. Business company background, no. I think maybe once or twice I've used the university logo on mine. What's happening behind the scenes? 43% cleaned only part of their room visible on camera. Yes, I can say that. 43% of parents had their kids show up during a meeting. Yes. And I think if we're working from home, we should be allowed the interruptions of a child walking into a meeting. And you know what? I think it should be accepted at this stage. Worse things have happened. I think it's accepted. 39% said private side chatted with friend or colleague to make them laugh. So using the chat box, making another colleague laugh while an important board meeting is going on. I can't confirm or deny I've done that. 36% had a pet show up during a meeting. I don't have any pets, so I can't say I have. What other funny things have happened in your Zoom or meetings? This was brought out by Zoom. I'm sure it happens on Microsoft Teams as well, and really enjoyed that. Now, Mike Slamer is under the spotlight on this episode, Christmas episode of episode 55 of the All Things TechIE podcast. Mike has got a CTS during the year, and he'll tell you about that during this short interview. And he also has created an album, an EP, and we gave Mike a bit of a plug. All Things TechIE podcast, episode 55. I think the last time we had Mike on was during the first wave of the COVID pandemic. What a great episode that was, Mike. We had so much fun. It's just like everyone's at home. Everyone doesn't know whether they're supposed to work or not. People don't have equipment, so they can't work. Yeah. People are emailing us, phoning us, or whatever. But you know what? Let's do a podcast for like 2 hours, and that's pretty much what we did ad lib. And we had so many AV professionals from around the world on, just going, we don't know what's happening next. Let's just go with flow. Everyone at the time, Mike. Remember when we thought that?
I remember.
All going to be over in 2 weeks' time. We're just going to enjoy the annual leave and the holidays.
How young we were. Our youth, our youthfulness, and our optimism back then. To be young again.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, the two of us are still in jobs and in roles, because the AV industry has taken a battering, especially if you're working in live events.
Yeah, for sure.
It's how's things in the COVID world over there in New Jersey, isn't it? Yeah.
New Jersey, yes. So, for folks listening and or watching, if you're watching, Justin, I don't know if you're going to put this video anywhere, but, I am sorry that I look the way I do. I have a voice for radio, a face for radio, as they say. That's what I like to say. I don't know, man. It's a crapshoot. And what I mean by that is wherever you go in the US, each individual state here in the United States is like its own country. And yeah, it was kind of set up that way by design, blah, blah, blah. We can get into all that later. But ultimately, what has happened is that you now have people who fall into two camps. You either fall into a blue camp or a red camp. And without getting too political about it, the reds are, let's go against the communal good of society. The reds are very much me, very selfish, very much I want what I want. And, if I have to wear a mask, then you are fringing on my freedoms. And how dare you, and blah, 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 blah. So that's the way it's been for the past, God, however long we've been here. And as a result of that, we now have new variants. And folks didn't want to get vaccinated. They wanted to do their own thing. And they wanted to, I don't know, travel and live their lives as if there was no pandemic. They ignored all the science. They ignored all the guidance. They go into people's, places of congregation, whether it be at churches or assemblies, or when it comes to live events. A live event vendor can come in and say, no, you need to have a vaccination to get in. But Justin, people are liars. They don't
Oh, well,
care.
look.
They're not gonna follow the rules for XYZ reason. And look, I'm not perfect. I don't follow the rules half the time. I don't if I don't have to wear my mask, I don't wear my mask. It's that simple. Now I do more often because the variants are back and we know that, vaccinations aren't as effective as they were, so let's go back to wearing the mask. Yes, I'm gonna wear mine forever on public transit. I don't know about you, but being
Oh
on a
no,
bus
like
or a
totally.
train, yeah, like just wear the mask because
We're back to full capacity on buses and trains.
same,
Yeah,
same.
now and like that, our Dublin bus says keep the windows open, and I'm thinking, could you not just put a lock that keeps the windows open, like the little, to just let air and proper ventilation go
Hmm.
through the bus? But no, like people close them. It's winter time. People close them. The amount of people, like we all know the joke emails of like, if you can tuck your penis into your underpants, why can't you tuck your mask over your nose?
Exactly,
Like, like what is the
exactly,
problem here, guys? You don't show your private parts in public, then why do you have to show your nose?
exactly.
It and yeah, people wearing them as that, beard nappies, as we have called them as well. Like, but we're back to full capacity. Yeah, I totally agree. I will totally wear a mask everywhere I go. Like we're on university campus where like the lecturer doesn't have to wear a face mask. The students do, but like you're talking like 200 plus people in a room at times,
Yeah,
or more. And then again, like there's places that I've been, there's pubs I've been in that like, yeah, you have to nearly ask them, like, do you want to see my COVID pass? And people are taking, like, they don't even watch you opening the app, so you might as well have a
yeah.
screenshot of the COVID pass. They're not like cross-referencing; they just want the business. So this is
Yeah, I
this is
mean,
where we're at.
Justin, listen, at the end of the day, nobody wants to be going around showing cards and badges and passes and having to carry a vaccination card. Like here in the US, our public school system, you had to be vaccinated. You have a vaccine card as a child that has to be submitted to the schools because all these kids are coming in and coming in and coming in. Like this is how we prevent these diseases. This is how we prevent people from mass dying from preventable illnesses. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. But as an adult, I'm a 35-year-old man in the United States. I don't want to feel like I'm a kid again. Oh, I got to show my pass. I got to get up and go to the bathroom. Do I need a hall pass? Mr. Bartender, can I go to the bathroom? Like, I don't want to do that stuff either. I get it. I understand that point. But the only way we're going to get to a point where none of us have to do that anymore is if we all just go back to those first 2 weeks. Like we said, we're all in it together. Are
Yeah.
we in it together? Because it don't freaking feel like it. It feels like half of us are working really hard on this group project, and then the other half are just hanging out at home, watching TV, hoping that we're going to do the homework for them. That's what it is. And our society is global, whether we like it or not. And we have to get right with that collectively, or we are all going down. And that's what
Amen
it
to
is right
that.
now.
But
We are all going down, and nobody's going to have a good time. Why fight it? Why fight it, Justin? There's no point. Just do the thing so we can get to the other side of this faster. It's that simple.
yeah, it is so true, Mike. Now,
Ah,
but does work? Is your employer allowed to ask you? Have you been
yes.
vaccinated? They are allowed to ask you.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So our I work for a global media company, the Discovery Incorporated, and we have obviously we have more than 100 employees. We have about 9,000. And we do have a vaccination requirement for people coming to the office. You have to submit your vaccination record to security, and that allows you free access to the building to do your job as you normally would. It took zero time. You just take a photo of your vaccine card, you send it to the head of security, and they log it, and you get your approval to come in. Takes no time at all. Takes no time. And honestly, like we still have to mask up in the office. We are now limiting personnel coming into conference rooms. You have to be masked. The only place you don't have to be masked is like at your own personal workstation eating, and that's pretty much it, or in the cafeteria eating. Now, to to that end, with the way that the new variants are very highly infectious, blah blah blah. They have decided that for the next few weeks through the holidays, of course, everyone just work remote. There have been a few positive cases as a result. All protocols have been followed. Even myself, I'm one of the few technology people in the building every day. So I'm exposed to everybody basically. And for someone like me, I have to wear my mask around everyone I talk to, every single conference room I go into. So I'm very cognizant, right? Like AV people, we're not exactly all over the building. There's usually one per campus if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
So if something happens to us,
like that, I got I have my work mobile, I have my personal mobile. I got a SMS message to say I was a close contact, and at first I thought it was a fake message because I was like, why is this coming to my work phone? And I was like, okay. And so I went off, did my PCR, thankfully negative. But I then worked out that there was one thing that I did that someone might have had my work number, because I'm only new to the role. Like, I'm less than a year in the role. So I was thinking, who has my work number? So yeah, and I sort of worked it back and went, okay, there must have been someone that got COVID in a certain meeting, but thankfully negative. But I just really woke me up and just went, I need to wear my mask on campus all the time. So yeah. Well, look, to all our listeners, Mike Slamer joins us under the spotlight for All Things TechIE, episode 55. Mike, you did mention who you work for, but where did it all begin in the AV industry for you?
Where did it all begin? Gosh,
once upon a time.
once upon a time. I mean, like if we go way back, I'm gonna all right, Justin, I'm gonna take you back to a smoky jazz club in some town in New Jersey, outside
COVID
of New York
never
City.
existed.
Way before, in the before four times. My father's a musician. He plays guitar. He's a very talented guitar player. He played with many of the greats and many jazz clubs. And I would go with him as a wee lad, 4, 5, 6 years old, and I would sit in these smoky clubs back when you could smoke indoors, and you could it was wild times. These were the 80s, early 90s, and he would sit me generally near the soundboard so he could like see me. He would know where I was, and I would sit there basically to myself, playing with my action figure or whatever. But I would see all the pretty lights. I would see all the pretty lights.
That's what I'm gonna get to.
All that
like pretty lights,
all that outboard gear, all the EQs and the compressors and everything that they had, leading out. And I would see all the little buttons and knobs and things. And I'm just a kid. That's the bread and butter for a kid. You show me pretty lights, you show me buttons and knobs, I'm gonna touch things. I actually have a very funny memory. My dad was in the studio and I was in the control room, and I turned something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember I turned a knob, and it was just a huge squelch of feedback in the session room. So I clearly turned the gain up on something that I wasn't supposed to when nobody was looking at me, and it was really bad, and everyone got really mad. And I remember my dad's friend, who was the engineer, was like, "Oh, what are you doing? No, don't touch it. You can't do that." Oh, and that definitely scared me, and that taught me, like, hey, maybe know what you're touching before you touch things. But babies are babies, and I was just a baby. But then I became a musician, and as a musician in high school, Justin, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you have a band, and if you have any type of equipment that is, that can be used by many people, like for instance, a PA system, even if it's a 4-channel PA with a couple of speakers, guess what? Everybody wants to use it. So I would be, not necessarily renting, but I'd be like, yeah, give me $20, give me $20. And, let you use it for the weekend, house parties, basement, garage parties, garage shows. That was the big one. That was the big one. And, that got me into like, okay, what does low frequency actually mean? What does a mid frequency actually mean? What am I plugging into this channel and how can I make it sound good? And then that launched me into the world of AV in a little bit more constructive fashion, especially from a live show presentation environment. It wasn't long before a friend texted me saying, hey, real quick. I would help out a friend of mine, Joe, and he did live events, wineries, barbecue festivals, small scale regional type stuff, not like big concerts or big shows or anything. But I would push cases for him. I would set microphones up. I would run cabling. I would load the truck and unload and pack cables away at the end of a show, and 10, 12 hour, 15-hour days in the hot sun on a summer, right? So that's where I kind of cut my teeth a little bit. And then it wasn't too long before a friend texted me and said, hey, there's a warehouse job for an AV company outside New York City. They need someone who kind of sort of knows it, but you don't need to know everything. And I was like, all right, I don't know anything about video. I don't really know anything about lighting, but I do know a lot about PA systems. And, that was my start. So I started working in the warehouse for a company called CityView Audiovisual. And I really credit them to launching my career today, because without them, I worked at CityView for 5 years. And, I started in a warehouse, and within 3 months, I was driving the truck around Manhattan. And if you've never been to Manhattan, it can get crazy. It's on a grid system. Traffic is out the wazoo. You can't park anywhere. It's a battleground for a person working commercial, anything, whether you're driving a truck or a FedEx or a UPS truck or delivering equipment, you got to deal with loading zones, parking rules. Oh my God, it's a battle. So, I did all that. And then I learned, this is what lighting means. This is what a LECO is. This is what a gobo is. What is the difference between HDMI and HDSTI? Why do I need VGA? This was, of course, 10 years ago, but that was the start. And I learned what all these things were, and I learned the protocols, and I learned how to work through HDCP management. I learned how to boost signals across 500-600 feet of a ballroom. I learned all these little minute details, as opposed to, yeah, I'm the sound guy or I'm the video guy. I learned what that meant.
Yeah.
And that was cool. And CityView did that for me. And that's where it all began.
So how from there, how did it end up with like going from CityView to Discovery? How many years are you with Discovery now at this stage?
I'm coming up. So I call it, there's the unofficial and then there's the official. So generally, and for a lot of firms, they start you out as a contract worker, because they don't know your skill level. They don't actually, what if you were just padding your resume? Like, so they start you as a contractor, and then they bring you on full time. So I was a contractor for about four months before they brought me on full time. So I'm coming up on my official 3-year mark, where I'll have worked at Discovery for 3 years, come January 7th. And that's pretty exciting. I really do enjoy it. My role there is largely end user support. And in a virtual COVID pandemic situation, that really means I'm doing a lot of Zoom meetings for people. I am now like the Zoom expert, for a lot of people at Discovery. And they come to me with like, oh, I need this, I need that, I got this event, how do you think I should run it, what should I do, should I do this, should I do that?
So have they put you in Discovery Channel as the main Zoom admin with access all areas of the
pretty much Yeah. We do have like a proper UC team that manages that aspect, like actually manages Zoom room deployment. I'm part of that team, but I basically go where they tell me and build the room that they tell me to build. But on the other side of my job is actually working events, both internal and external. And that's my main bread and butter. So internally, we very exciting. I could talk about it a little bit later, but we designed, in-house, we designed and built our own AV control systems for our brand new event space, our large town hall event space, and our premier executive boardroom, which also has an outdoor terrace feature. So we designed these technological spaces. We brought in the equipment, we spec'd the equipment, and outside of the union labor that actually did all the cabling and hanging the actual TVs and speakers, we built it. We freaking built that. And to do it all in-house, like not engaging with a contractor, not engaging with a third-party builder, to say, okay, we want a Samsung Q series, OLED display in the space, and they go out, they put it together, they build it, and they do everything, and they also say, okay, we're going to put in a brand new biamp system, to control the room. And, you're going to be working with Crestron. No, we didn't do any of that. We said, we are literally telling you exactly what we want. And we went through the line drawings. We did the line drawings with their designers, patched everything through, worked with the people who are actually running the cable, went line by line, line by line. And that's an experience in and of itself. But all 100% in-house. And we did it that way because, we know in 5 years, most of it's going to be obsolete, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Most of it is going to have some kind of upgrade available, whether it be a hardware solution or a software solution that requires a new bit of hardware.
It's nice that you were able to do that. Like, I know from working in public sector and universities, we have our third-party tenders, we have our third-party contractors, and we sort of can't go over the line because that's our contract with. It's nice to be able to go directly to manufacturers and just go, right, give us 3 of them, 2 of them, and we're going to kit it out ourselves.
Exactly.
I say you saved an absolute fortune as well doing it that way.
Oh, for sure, for sure. We still had to engage with certain buyers. Here in the U.S., it's very difficult to get equipment directly from a manufacturer. You still have to go to a buyer for it. So we do have that in line, and with that comes certain levels of like maintenance services and on-call support. So for example, we did have one of our matrix switchers was dead on arrival. So we needed an immediate solve because we were gonna commission this room for the following week. We had a directive from an executive that says we need this room open for an event on this date. And one of the key pieces of equipment to manage all the video switches was dead, just shot. It was installed, powered on, but it did not function. Not a single switch actually took, and blah, 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 blah. So we had to get that replaced right away. We engaged with a vendor. They're like, oh, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks. Well, then we go to one of our local places, B&H, and they have it in stock. So we just bought it, and that's sometimes what we have to do is we have to bypass it and go from there.
Yeah. Now, with that in mind, it's one thing that I brought up before with my colleague Simon, my co-presenter. It's like, I have this really bad conspiracy theory that if you work public sector and your university versus if you're a private sector like the Discovery Channel or a big entity, you're going to be seen to quicker with the supply chains. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah. No, I think I don't know. I mean, it seems like everybody has some kind of agenda, some kind of political play, and I think we're all affected by this whole crisis, and it is what it is. If you're lucky,
you did well
you get
to get
lucky.
it. You did well to get all the equipment so quickly during the pandemic.
Yeah. We it came through. It came through.
Yeah. Now, have you found that with some of your installs and projects that you've been working on, that supply chain?
Sure. We we wanted black cameras for our boardroom space, and I don't know, so we have white now. So that's just the way it is. So we have white now. We have no idea if the black cameras are ever going to come, but we were able to get white ones. So we said, heck with it, let's just get the white ones. That way we have this room functional.
Yeah, and again, it's like sometimes it's not about the color and the aspect; it's about the tech and it actually working and doing what it's intended to do. Now, with COVID, we've had a mixture of people like myself change job, change roles. some people studied. You got your CTS during the COVID pandemic.
I did. How about that? I credit you.
Thank you
I
very much.
credit the AV Tweeps community. I credit AV in the AM. I think it was largely a, hey, listen, pre whatever, we were all out there working, and my focus wasn't on my career in a way where I could think critically about where I was going, what I was doing, and what it actually looked like that I was doing. And so I was kind of always not against, but I didn't care. I just didn't care about CTS. It's just a couple of letters. Who the heck cares? It's not a big deal. Don't stress it. And I didn't, and to this day, I still don't. But there was a change, and that change was largely the AV and the AM community and one of my colleagues who had his CTS already. So my colleague was hired a week or two before the pandemic started. So we didn't get a whole lot of in-office stuff, but he had his CTS. And I said, if the only other New York-based AV engineer in our role is going to have a CTS, I should get mine. And in conversations in the AV community, it was very much like, yeah, you should, here's the value, here's the benefit, here's this, here's that, here's the other thing. So I said, the heck with it. Let me get it. And I had it scheduled to get the test March 21 of 2020, and offices closed in Manhattan March 13, 2020. So it was, hey, it is what it is. It got kicked down the road. Things got canceled. I was able to get it rescheduled for December of 2020. And I did it. I got my CTS. I did some studying. It was a little bit harder than I expected it to be. But it wasn't outsized. Like, it definitely challenged my knowledge. It stretched things that I knew. And I definitely recommend getting the book, at least, touch upon chapters in the book that you may be unfamiliar with. You might be the best audio engineer in the world, but you might be the worst lighting guy in the world. And so therefore you got to check the lighting section, or you need to check. I know what really helped me was understanding the drawings, understanding, the tops and the lines, and what each individual piece actually means. Like, if you're looking at a vertical, then what are those definitions? Because AVIXA and standardized testing in general, they want you to know the keywords. You can inherently know it.
Oh yeah, like we know all the buzz terms. And your buzz terms could be completely different to the Irish buzz terms or the English buzz terms. And I still, to this day, and I talk to a lot of the AV Brits as well, we find it as an American type of exam. And I know the examiners and the certificate committees listening to this podcast, and they keep on saying, well, if you feel that way, change it. But yeah, I suggest, like, there's a couple of times that I looked at questions, like even the sample questions, like, this is so American. Yeah. Did you find that? Have you been subjected, like, from your workplace, like, it's a global company? Do you hear some buzz terms in AV that go, what?
Well, the funny thing is, when it comes to working with users, they have no idea what anything means.
Yeah, okay.
So, you could say, you could give a highly technical term, and you could talk about, the sound pressure level in a conference room and where it should be versus where it is. And they'll look at you like you have three heads,
is the mic working?
yeah. Like, for example, we had a person, and the crazy thing, and I know, you can sit with a brain surgeon and you could put a microphone on them, but they won't know how to use it. But they're a freaking brain surgeon, and it's like, I trust you.
I work in the School of Nursing.
There you go. There you go. So like you have your area of expertise. I have mine. Let me work mine. And the crazy thing is, like, as an AV engineer, you're constantly fighting with people who are like, well, I don't understand the why. Help me understand the why. But the real component to that is they don't care. They actually don't care. They just want it to work. They just want it to work, and they want to get it to good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be good enough, because if you get it too perfect, that introduces a whole slew of other problems. We are currently dealing with a minor issue. Well, I don't know if it's truly minor, but we installed brand new Panasonic PTZ 4K cams in our executive boardroom space. Well, it come to light that during a meeting, using those cameras, yeah, you can see everything. You can also see, if someone has their iPad open on the table, you can see what's on that iPad because the camera is that sharp.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest complaints is like, oh, the camera quality in these rooms are never that good. They're just blah, 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 blah. It's like, all right, well, we will fix that. And so we did. And now it's, we don't know that we like that other people can see things on our screens. It's like, well, maybe just don't have the screen open in front of the camera. I think that is the solution you're looking for, not necessarily I want the camera to look worse. That is the current situation I'm in. That is it's frustrating because you want to give a great experience. You want to give them the best. I want to see you, Justin, as clear as I possibly can. Like,
and the problem is that I've experienced, and not just from my own workplace, but you'll have in universities across Ireland, I'll say across Ireland because I've worked in a couple of different ones, right, that you will have the attenders upselling instead, especially when they know that like a lot of people that they talk to don't know the AV. And sometimes they get caught out in the middle. And like, look, I've seen it even in private sector. When I worked in private sector, they were upselling, and you say to yourself, well, hold on a minute, like that's like we can get something cheaper that does the exact same thing on the tin. And then between that, and I say you've experienced this as well, you can put in a load of tech, and then you get in a programmer that puts in a really crap user interface, and if the end user doesn't understand how to use it, forget it.
Yep.
And that's what I've experienced only recently. Like let's change the user interface, because if I'm struggling to try and find the buttons on this touch panel, so is the end user. Why do we have to go into 3 different layers of
and that's why we designed our space, solely, and we ripped out all the automation, so that way there could be the only automation that we have in the building is the actual Zoom room touchpads. That's it. Okay. There is no Crestron device. There is no UX design of a new software panel, that's IP based, that you touch to bring the shades down and then the VC starts. None of that. There's none of that. We ripped it all out because there have been so many complaints about it throughout my career of working with all these different systems. Every building I go to, the technology, the cameras might be great, the mics might be perfect, they might be the best solution for the space, but the software that controls it is such garbage that you're just like, forget it. I don't even want to be bothered.
So did you stick with this sounds like a very personal work question. Did you stick with the Crestron user interfaces, or did you
Nope.
All gone. Did you still use the Crestron touch panels, or did you just use an open source?
We use their touch panels. We use their hardware for sure, but it's all the Zoom software.
Yeah.
So it's a strict Zoom room. We come in, we drop the Zoom. We have the little Intel Nooks. We drop them in the room, plug everything in, get the room commissioned and online. We walk away.
Super. Yeah. And the nice thing is, like, Zoom rooms have come out with a lot of JSON applications only recently that's going to change the whole approach of that you don't need to get in the Crestron programmer, which in Ireland, I can tell you now, is few and far between. You can't get programmers, and the right reason being is programmers are not paid properly in. I could even say programmers are not paid properly in UK and Ireland. That's the difference. Like, I
can believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also the fact that there's definitely wage inequality across everywhere, no matter where you go, every industry. And especially I think in technology, even more so, because everyone comes in with a different skill set. And I think companies can get away with, like now I have a CTS letter at the end of my name. So I would expect that if I were to go to an AV company, they would know what that means. And so I would get a little bit more money, because I did that. But there could be someone who is significantly better than me at that job, and they'll get paid, significantly less, all because of that designation, right? And that's realistically why I went out and got
Which
the
sort of,
designation.
yeah,
That way, yeah.
It sort of answers the question I was going to ask. Like, have you found that people treat you differently now that you have the CTS?
Inside the industry, yes. At work, I don't think anybody cares. Nobody knows what CTS means. I had someone actually ask me what it meant, and I had that happy moment of explaining what it is I actually do and what it actually means, and they were like, "Oh, wow, that's really neat. That's really cool," But nobody cares.
Yeah,
And I think that's kind of a bummer. Like I remember I texted my boss, and he was like, "Oh, that's great. I'm so happy." And then I was talking to his boss's boss, and he was like, "Whoa, what's CTS?" And I was like, "Oh, well," I explained it, and he was, "Oh, well, what'd you get that for?" And I was like, "Well, you should be happy that I got it. Why aren't you happy that I got it? Like, you should be gassing me up and saying, let me reimburse you for that, because I'm a member of your team that went out and got a higher level of education surrounding this job function, and you're clueless."
and the way that I always play it over the years that I've had my CTS now is to go play it back on the fact that, okay, your company has a standard. Well, now I'm adhering to global audiovisual standards, and that's what my CTS is all about. And that's what sort of way I push back. Now, you talked a lot, Mike, about your installs. Will you go further? Will you go and do the I or the D?
I would love to get the design accreditation. The more I think about it, the more I am looking to get away from strictly end user support. I think for me as an individual, I have learned a lot about myself, and trying to make everybody happy is not something I can do anymore. So I just need to make me happy. And I would rather work with like-minded engineers. I'd like to work on a system, maybe designing it, maybe just building it, or consultation, and helping people understand best practices and what the best solution might be for technology side. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see myself going further with the accreditations, but that's not the main goal in life for me.
I think that's going to be the
I have
quote
my
of
way,
the podcast, Mike. Mike is tired of making people happy, and we've been talking about Zoom for the past 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Making people happy is their slogan.
Making people happy.
Mike is tired of making people happy.
Look, man,
it's near Christmas.
Because happy doesn't mean anything anymore, Justin. Happy doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, you can have a perfect Zoom experience and you walk away and you'll be mad about something else. And I'll never hear, "Thank you for a great event. Thank you for your hard work making this happen for us."
We know as AV professionals, Mike, that we're only as good as our last gig, whether it's a live event or not.
100%.
If that room doesn't work, if you work 364 days a year and it doesn't work one day, you're going to be remembered for the one day it doesn't work. Unfortunately,
no, trust me, and that's a really real statement. And anyone listening to this, if you take anything away from this podcast, it's you're only as good as your last show. I don't care what you did, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I don't care, what cool thing you're working on. You're only as good as your last event. And that is a mantra that I've repeated to myself. And I beat that's I'm really harsh on myself when something goes wrong and I know I could have done better. Man, I can't tell you just how dejected and upset I get, whether it was a technological failure that I simply could not have prevented, or whether it was a work process thing that I forgot, because whatever reason. beat myself up so harshly. And, sometimes I take that harshness and it sticks with me through the next one. And, lessons learned, right? Like hard lessons have to be learned sometimes. And sometimes you have to relearn them, Justin.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you have to relearn some basics. And I think it's okay to have to do that. But I do think that you need to ensure that you are working towards not having that happen.
Yeah, I don't look. I think, to be honest, Mike, for me, like, and going back to trying to make people happy, I think at this stage in our industry, I think everyone now, people go just further than our industry. People are burnt out now at this stage and just
Yes.
down to Christmas. And thank God, like I've
Freaking burnt, man.
I'm finished work now until the new year. Thank God, But like I still have my 2022 diary, a full A4 page where I've written down, sort of prioritized what I have to do on the 4th of January when I go back onto campus. It's that busy, and
Yeah.
just people like. Yeah, it sounded great that we were in lockdown and we could just sort of like work from home, and who knows if people are if we're wearing pajamas underneath the table or whatever. But to actually getting back to a physical workplace, it seemed like we've been playing catch up this whole year.
We've been playing catch up, and I don't like this hybrid environment. I do not like it whatsoever. It is absolute garbage. It's garbage because we screwed up. The AV industry screwed up. We did too good keeping people online and on the network. We did it so well that now people have an expectation that it can be done everywhere for everything, and every experience will be perfect. And as a result of that, and tell me what you think, Justin. If I have an event and it's a Zoom meeting and I want to see everyone's face, I'm the host, I want to see everyone's face on the screen. But guess what? The old way of doing things was book out a conference room and pack everyone in the conference room to watch it, to be a part of that meeting from a conference room. But you don't get to see everyone's face inside of a conference room. You get to see a wide angle view. And if you're lucky, maybe it's a really fancy conference room and it has some automated software switching that can pick up the people who talk and auto frame them. It might be a couple seconds delay, but you might get lucky. Or you might be even luckier, and that room will be packed and operated by an AV technician, somebody like you or I, who can manually switch cameras and maybe focus in on who's talking. Or can feed back and say, hey, yeah, there were 20 people in this room. I don't know who they were, but there were 20 people. But now in Zoom meetings, if you, as the boss, as the manager, you want to see who's attended, you can't do that if there's a conference room joined. So you miss that human element. You've now removed that human element that we've tried so hard to bring to AV technology.
Well, yes and no. I'll go yes and no. If they want it, they can still get it through the Zoom stats and see who's in the rooms, and see who's joined the meeting. But
not if you join from a conference room, though. If you've got 10 people who all go into a conference room, there's no. You can see that the conference room is there, but you won't know
as a joint
the names
user,
of those 10 people.
Of course.
So as a business manager, I might be like, well, yo, Justin Dawson did not join this meeting. He hasn't joined the past several meetings. Let's pull him in for a review, and you'll be like, dude, I was on all those. I was in the conference room, blah, 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 blah. That is what is happening now. And it's our fault, Justin, because we did so well connecting everybody that now there's an expectation. And here's the other side of that coin, because there is a solution, but it's a little clunky. You can have everyone BYOD, drop it onto the conference room table, join that Zoom meeting from their laptop, and then they can use the conference room system, but just have their camera open on their face.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the solution. Does anyone want to do that? No, nobody wants to do that.
Or I think like Zoom came out with a load of stats. I know this program, this podcast is about Mike Slamer. We're going to get to that as well, but we're talking a lot about Zoom here. But no, it's good to talk about it, because Zoom came out with stats, Mike, and I know we're two big Zoomy people that use Zoom all the time. But Zoom came out with stats of how many people have their cameras on during meetings and how many don't, and it's nearly 60% to 40% who don't turn on their cameras during a virtual meeting. to be honest, it drives me nuts. I think it's the only time that you should have your camera off is if you have an emergency. And yes, people are working from home, people have kids or whatever, but does anyone care? Like, do you, to be quite honest now, okay, you're working in a broadcast company. That might be a difference if someone's presenting a program and has a baby or a cat on their lap. But for the likes of me on campus or whatever, I've been supporting webinars, I've been supporting meeting calls, and I've had my child on my lap during the beginning of the year when creches were closed, when schools were closed. You know what? I've seen all types of scenarios. I'm sure you have too, where people have been working from home and they're sitting in beside their washing machine or tumble dryer. You know,
I have. I've seen some crazy setups. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, do we actually care? You know, at that stage.
I
But
don't
I agree. I agree with you on the attendance and how can we solve it in that type of view. But there's then, like, I'm not going to pick out even my campus. All campuses have sort of in Ireland started pushing back. Well, it's the students' experience. The students should be on campus. But there's students that travel the length and breadth of Ireland to come to Dublin campus and vice versa. You know, so if there's travel restrictions, if the cost of accommodation in Dublin is so high, why can't it be blended learning? Why can't it be that's where hybrid works, in my view. It can have its benefits as well as its flaws. So,
Sure.
But I guess you're just you're just done with the complete.
There's too many people who want to go back to the way things were, and
it's never going to go.
It never will. It never will. And trying to like, it's you're trying to steer this giant ship of different individuals, different ideas, different ways of going about doing things, and you're trying to steer everybody. This is the thing about having standards, having audiovisual standards. You know, I got my CTS, you have your CTS, like we know what the standards are, and you and I can talk and connect and be like, yes, this makes sense. But a lot of people don't. They're just used to doing things the way they've always done them. And so trying to right the ship not post, we are still in the pandemic, but you know, post lockdowns and getting people back into the office, that's really difficult.
Now, you mentioned well, before we go into your music, have you been to Infocom yet?
No, I have never been to Infocom.
Okay, because are you, like, with trade shows, do you attend any?
I would love to go. Love to go, but there's a cost benefit, and unfortunately, these trade shows are so expensive. You have to register. The flights are outrageous. The hotels are outrageous. You get gouged left and right. And for a regular guy like myself, I'm not a fancy salesman. You know, I don't wear a tie everywhere I go. You know, I don't have that vibe. You know, so I don't go to these trade shows, and you know, I would love to, because I would love to meet my peers, my colleagues. I would love to, you know, spend some time with people who I know have a lot more to offer, that I could benefit from, and also from the other way around.
Well, I like where I was going with that lead on type of questions is because ISE is coming up in February. I was going to attend, and then I was thinking Barcelona, then Omicron. I'm just like, no, I pulled the plug. And do you know what? It's sad to think that we're coming into the second year of Barcelona. It did happen last year. Fair play to Mike Blackman and all the team to pull it off and get it going. But I've heard from more and more manufacturers that are going and asking me, because, like, you know, I'm an end user and some bit of an integrator of, are you going? And I was, and they all said that, like, that company and that salesperson actually told me that he hasn't spoke to one person in any universities in Ireland that were actually attending ISE next year. And more you see manufacturers doing their own thing, and especially when it's coming to a virtual environment, more people are just doing virtual events now. To be honest, I'm sick of doing virtual trade show events. You know, like, I love to be able to physically hold the product, but again, I think as we come into year 2 and potentially year 3 of this pandemic, that more and more it's going to be the Crestrons, the Extrons, the Samsungs inviting people. Like LG have their own little hub, Harman have their own little experience hub in England. Now they're just going to invite end users over to their place rather than go to.
I'll tell you what, I took part in a virtual event hosted by Logitech. It was an hour-long event. A half hour of it was dedicated to beer tasting and music. They had a singer-songwriter come on. They had a, gosh, I can't remember the name of the brewery, but they had one of the bartenders from the brewery came on. They talked about the beer. They sent you the pack. They sent you a 6-pack of beer, and you got to sit there virtually in a meeting, drink these beers, taste all of them, get to know it a little bit, and then finished off with a couple of songs from a singer-songwriter who was local to that brewery. And that was a really cool event. I loved it. We had about a half hour dedicated to the actual products from Logitech, the different rally bars and webcams and things that they had on offer. And then the other half hour was just relax, guys, have fun, and that I really appreciated. I really, really gave major props to Logitech for doing that, because it wasn't your prototypical, here's our product suite, ask us questions, are you a buyer, what's your title, who are you in your organization, that kind of
how much money
stuff
do you have to spend every year,
what's your budget, yeah. Are you a decision maker? It's like, man.
And you know what, Mike, we're going to have you again on another show, because between that's one of my AV pet hates, and my other AV pet hate is getting LinkedIn posts and recruitment companies contact me. It's like, we have a job that you'd be totally suitable for.
Okay.
And you go, can you send me the job description? So that means that we can put you forward for it. It's like, you haven't even told me what the job was. And secondly, what's the salary? Oh, well, it's depending on your experience. What is your salary?
What is the salary? Have you seen my LinkedIn profile recently? I've updated it.
No, I haven't.
So my about section. So I much like every other AV person, there's so many like connection requests and all this. So my about page says, hello, thank you for your interest in my profile. If we are not already connected, then before sending me a message, identify which of the below is not a starship, but a software program. And I list out a whole bunch of famous starships from sci-fi. Like, you got the Millennium Falcon, you got the Enterprise. I've got some space shuttles on there, and then I've got Keynote. Apple's Keynote is what I'm looking for in an answer. So I had one person who I'm talking with later today who actually did the right thing and said, oh, I think it's Keynote, but let me know if I'm wrong. I'd love to chat anyway. Like, thank you. It worked. I still get people who ignore it completely, and I just basically click decline right out of the gate. I don't know, man. I don't have the patience.
No, I get a lot of links from doing the podcast as well, and then you have a lot of the Asian companies that say, right, so you're going to get 50,000 of our products. It's like, sorry, what are you selling?
What? Wait, 50,000? What now?
What now? Now, we talked about live events and how things are, but you've taken a gamble. You still have your main job in the Discovery Channel, but you're still doing music. Are you actually getting out to gig?
Oh yeah,
you're getting out to play.
So not recently. It's twofold. So yes, I play guitar, I sing, and I recently put out a little EP, which we'll talk about in a minute. But my background really, I've always been in bands, and this is my first solo quote unquote effort. So a few months ago, I was going out, I was playing like, at least 2 or 3 gigs a month. And I had hoped to continue that, but work is work and life is life. And sometimes things have to take priority. So, I haven't been gigging recently, but I did drop my EP last month. It's been out for about 3 weeks now. And I love gigging, man. There's nothing like getting on stage and being under the lights and entertaining and having a good time. And, my whole thing, my philosophy, if you will, behind life is good food, good drink, good people. And if you think about all your pivotal pivotal moments in life, you know, whether it's a birthday or a graduation or a celebration, there are two things that are always there, and that's food and drink. And people will never remember, people will always remember if you have good food, and they will always remember if you have bad food.
Mhm.
So to me, it's like, have good food, have good drink, have good people around. And I want to be involved in that. I want to entertain. I want to bring an element because, you know, I do love to cook. You know, I've home brewed. I love good beers. And I think it's so crucial that that experience is one of pure joy, because people getting together for weddings and feasts and celebrations. You think about the Vikings when they would come back from raiding, and they would have these giant feasts of ale and whatever. and that, you know, the music is going, the bards are playing, and that's who I am, man. I'm just a bard out here, you know, waiting for the feast to begin so I can do my part. And that's really what it comes down to. I just love that atmosphere, and COVID shutting everything down is such a crappy, like, it sucks the joy right out of you. And that's really where it comes down to. But, you know, for my music, it's just me, man. And I just wanted to get it out there because COVID is a catalyst for change, both technology here, being as we're AV people, and as individuals. What's important to you? What's important to your loved ones? Is it your job? That kind of sucks if that's like your main focus. And you know, like I'll say it. I'll say it. I think having that type of work ethic where you would sacrifice time with your family, friends, and loved ones in exchange for your job. I used to hustle in my 20s, and I missed out on so many things that I wish I didn't, because I decided, no, work is more important right now. It wasn't, man. It wasn't. And COVID, let me tell you, positive change for, I hope, a lot of people. Work is not that important. And
Like I
fine.
call it the COVID.
We'll all be all right.
I call it the COVID contemplation. People have had
Yeah.
time in Ireland and England and further afield to actually go, is this a job I want to do? I know so many people that, like, yeah, they got the pandemic payments and then decided, you know what, I don't want to do this job anymore. You know, and I don't just mean AV. It's just in general. Like, people just,
anything.
Yeah, they it was an eye opener. It's like, I want to spend time with my family, you know, or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So that's great that you've been able to take your passions and be able to. Now, did you record in studio, or did you use your own home studio and record the EP? Or?
This is where it gets real fun. So I put out the CP. It's called The What If Game. It's available Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen. You can also check it out, mikeslamer.bandcamp.com, and you can purchase your own copy or an individual song if you want. And I actually recorded all of these songs roughly 10 to 15 years ago. So they've been sitting in an archive forever. And, you know, I never really thought to use. So, you know, long story short, it was always in bands. And, you know, these were songs that I recorded to be as part of a band release. But those bands broke up, as things do. People went on their separate ways. So all these songs were just been kind of sitting. And I never did anything with them because there was nothing to do with them. What am I going to do? Put it out under my own name? Who am I? Nobody cares. Well, over the past, you know, I went to work, I did my job, I did my thing, you know, life happened, and music kind of got put on the back burner, but I continued to play in bands, play out every so often. But these songs didn't really have anywhere to go. So finally, my brother told me, hey, listen, just put it out. These are good songs. Just do it. If people love it, then they love it. And if they hate it, they're never going to say anything to you anyway. So don't even worry about it. I was like, you know what? Fair point. So did a whole package, put it all together, called up my mix engineer. We're still friends to this day. And I said, hey, you know, remember those songs that we did all those years ago? Oh yeah, I got them. It's like, well, let's do a real thing. Let's put it together. You know, like let's mix them. We'll produce them. We'll put together a little package. We'll get it out there. And so we did. And over the course of the pandemic, Joe, my mix engineer, and I, we had several phone conversations. We emailed back and forth. He would send the tracks over, and I would say, love this sound, don't love that sound. Let's go back to the drawing board and maybe remove the reverb on the track, or let's double the track, or let's do this instead. So we were working with all things that were recorded about 15 years ago, and he still had them in the archive, right? He doesn't delete anything. I love that guy. And today we have now a package that's a little bit more modernized, even though the songs are written through that lens of like 15 years ago or however long. The sound is now modern, and it's big and it's grand, and it has a real feel to it. And that is something really exciting that I didn't expect to get. I expected him to maybe like, just do a couple of patches on them, maybe check to make sure that all the snare hits are actually on the beat, make sure that everything sounds good and is leveled, and he would master it and put it out there. But he went big. We went in track by track, note by note.
Super. So you're going to play one of the songs. How many songs on the EP now?
So there are 5 songs, the What If game, 5 songs. It's, like I call myself a singer-songwriter. It's very acoustic rock based. The first track on the album is called Push. It's got this like kind of, I wrote it in a drop D tuning, and it's got this drive to it. It's very collective soul vibe, a lot of staccato hits, heavy bass going on, and some real mean, raunchy lead guitar stuff. Definitely one of my favorite tracks on the album. The song Hold On, which is the song I'm going to play for you. It's very kind of an upbeat, and I wrote it using, it's still an A chord, but the way that I played it is kind of in like a 7th position. So if you were to play an A to an A, just like an A note to the chord, you'd be like, hold on a second, something doesn't work right here. So it's really cool. I was experimenting with some different chord voicings in that song, and that's where it came from, like, because as you write things and play and practice, suddenly something turns into another thing, and then you have to build it. So I did, and that's the song I'll play for you in a minute. But my favorite song on the album is Do You Think of Me? Big acoustic ballad. Folks who have bought the album, a lot of people have come back and said it's their favorite track. So I'm really excited for that. I just, I love hearing all this feedback. It's so gracious.
Working with the Discovery Channel, Mike, are you going to do some music videos?
Oh gosh. I'd have to, hopefully no one from legal is going to hear this. And they'll be like, what do you mean you're going to do a music video? That's a conflict of interest. No. I mean, like we do have like music supervisors, and there's like a whole way to submit like music through it. So I was kind of sort of thinking like, oh, maybe I'll do that and see if someone picks it up. And in that vein, it's like, oh, it'll happen, and I don't have to stress it.
Okay. Well, let's have a bit of your track. We're going to actually end out on your track. Mike, it's been great talking to you. I always have fun with Mike when he comes on to a podcast. We have to do more of these in 2020.
Oh, I'd love to. There's so much to talk about. I have so many more things to say.
Yeah, well, I love an opinionated AV professional that like Mike, that we could talk about so much tech, so many things have happened. We can do the Irish and American perspective on audiovisual and COVID, and
yep,
we know which side of the camp that Mike lies in, because his room is painted blue for no particular reason.
It's a calming color. It's a calming color.
Yeah, compared to
does it
red.
Work? I don't know. Am I calm? Do I sound calm?
You do sound calm. You do sound
all right.
calm.
Fair enough.
Mike, great talking to you. If people want to get in touch with you, get this song, where do they go to?
Sure. You can always find me on Twitter at Mike Slamer, MikeSlamer. I'm sure Justin will make sure he puts that with the correct spelling in the description below the podcast episode. But you can find me there. My website is called slamtownstudios.com. So make sure you check out my website. You can find all my music there from all the many, many, many years, everything that was released and some things that were unreleased. So if you care, I don't know if anyone's like a hardcore Mike Slamer fan out there. There are actually a few hardcore Mike Slamer fans out out there, but it's a different Mike Slamer. He was a guitarist for a 70s rock band called City Boy back in the day. And he also played, he did the guitar solo on Warrant's Cherry Pie. So, you know, he's also done a number of other things. He's a real shredder, real great.
So,
like,
so Mike,
musician.
are you telling me that like you get hate mail and you go, all right, it's the wrong Slamer? It's okay.
It's never been hate mail. It's always like, are you Mike Slamer? Are you the guy? Oh my God, I loved your work. And I have to be like, man, that dude is like 50 years older than me. Just look at the picture. It's really funny though. But yes, you can find me slamtownstudios.com. You can find me just on Twitter. I mean, I don't really go anywhere else. I have a Facebook, but I'm never on it. So don't find me there.
You know that every AV tweet and every AV professional on AV and the AM is going to pick up and try and find who this other Mike Slamer is.
Go for it. Go for it. I mean, that's hilarious. I've reached out to him. I've actually tried to message him and be like, hey, you know, I get a lot of your mail. No response.
No response. I bet it'd be different if people were sending you money for his tracks and
that'd be great.
Yeah,
like please make the mistake of thinking I am him and buy my music.
That could work. Mike, I'm going to leave you out and let you play the song, and it's been great talking to you, buddy.
Sunday, this never happened so fast. Goodbyes are harder alone. No one there to take you home. Are you lost, girl? What you looking for? This leaf should do you good. I know you're not leaving forever. Lost all the time spent together. And since you won't be around, seems like the music will lose its sound. So hold on, don't leave without saying goodbye. Don't leave without kissing me and saying it'll be alright. So hold on, I've got so much to say, but it seems like I've lost the words anyway. Caribbean, I know how to see you again. Until the time, girl, I wish you were here to sing songs with me till the sun rests easy. And since you won't be around, seems like the music will lose its sound. So hold on, don't leave without saying goodbye. Don't leave without kissing me and saying it'll be alright. So hold on, I've got so much to say, but it seems like I've lost the words anyway. You're chasing dreams in the sunsets and living life free. You're chasing dreams in the sunsets and living life free. And since you won't be around, seems like the music will lose its sound. So hold on, don't leave without saying goodbye. Don't leave without kissing me and saying it'll be alright. So hold on, I've got so much to say, but it seems like I've lost the words anyway. So hold on, don't leave without saying goodbye. Don't leave without kissing me and saying it'll be alright. Hold on, I've got so much to say, but it seems like I've lost the words anyway.
up with Mike. I really do enjoy having Mike on the podcast. That's all from episode 55 of the All Things Techie podcast. I'm Justin Dawson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Merry Christmas to you all. Have a great new year. Hope you all decide to join in on the podcast at some stage in 2022 and more regular podcasts as well. From me, Justin, and on behalf of Simon as well, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and talk to you next year. Goodbye.